On Saturday, August 15th, 2026, an undrafted rookie almost nobody in football had ever heard of walked onto the field in Seattle for the first professional game of his life wearing a chain with a photograph inside of it. He caught every pass thrown his way, 3 targets, 3 catches, 62 yards, and both of Dallas's touchdowns. One of those catches was a ridiculous one-handed grab. Dallas won 17-7, and by the next morning the clips were everywhere, and the guy almost nobody was talking about before training camp had Cowboys fans all asking the same question. Who is Camden Brown? But what most people don't know is the picture inside that chain was of his little sister, and the reason he had it on is that 2 days before that game was August 13th. August 13th is the day that she passed away.
This past week was rough for me because August 13th, 2021 was one of the ways she passed away.
But here's the part that makes that day strange. 4 months earlier, all 32 NFL teams looked at this exact receiver and every single one of them decided that he wasn't worth the pick. And in the 3 years before that, the SEC program he signed with had him buried so far down the roster that he went entire games without touching the ball. So how does a receiver nobody wanted end up doing what he did in that stadium in that week? The answer starts with the girl in the photograph. Her name was Kaden Storm Brown. She had kidney failure, and almost nobody expected her to grow up. The way her big brother says it about as plain as it gets.
She had kidney failure. People said she wasn't going to make it past 3. She still proved people wrong, and she lived to 17 years old. So
years of appointments and machines and hospital rooms and a little girl who kept refusing to go. And her big brother watched all of it. Kaden died on August 13th, 2021. Camden Brown was going into his senior year of high school. And then came the day that no teenager should have ever had to live through. 15 days after she died, St. Thomas Aquinas opened its season against St. Francis Academy of Baltimore. It was a Saturday afternoon game live on ESPN in front of the whole country. And by Camden's own account, he went to his little sister's funeral and then he played that nationally televised football game the very same day. He has described what that day did to him as this. Having to go to her funeral and then play on ESPN that same day made me realize I was playing for something bigger than myself. He was wearing number 4 at the time. He had picked it partly because of the receivers who wore it before him at his high school, but after that day, the number stopped being about football. As he explained it later, then my sister passed away and that number started to mean even more. I wanted to always have number 4 on my jersey because it stands for something bigger than me. Remember that number. It comes back at the end of this story in a way he could not have planned. But to understand what Camden Brown does with all of that, you first have to go back to where it all began. Camden Brown was born on May 6, 2004 in Monroe, Louisiana, up in the northeast corner of the state on the Wichita River. Monroe is a city of about 47,000 people, and it has been shrinking for 45 years. It's peaked in population back in 1980, and it's been sliding ever since. The average household income sits around $40,000 a year. More than a third of the city lives below the poverty line. It's not a place where there's room for a lot of opportunities, so if you get one shot, you had better take it. Football was already in his house when he got there. His father is Lander Brown, and according to Camden's own Auburn bio, his dad played college football right there in the town at University of Louisiana Monroe. His mother is Dion Honeycutt. Camden started playing when he was 5 years old, and his dad told him what he was going to be. Camden has repeated the line himself word for word. You're going to be tall, so I know you're going to be great. He never stopped being from there either. As a teenager, he was asked if he had any signature moves, and his answer was the gritty, and then he explained why. He said, I got to put it on for Louisiana because that's our dance. And there's one more small thing that tells you who he is. Somebody once asked him what goes through his head pre-snap. His answer was 7 words. I think of my papa every time. But Camden Brown did not play his high school football in Louisiana. He played it about 1,000 miles away in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at St. Thomas Aquinas High School. If you don't follow high school football, that name may mean nothing to you, so let me explain what it means. St. Thomas Aquinas is one of the most famous football factories in the entire country. More than 50 of its players have gone on to play in the NFL. Nick and Joey Bosa came out of there, so did Geno Atkins, and so did a receiver named Michael Irvin, who went on to win 3 Super Bowls for the Dallas Cowboys and walk into the Hall of Fame. So this is what Camden Brown chose. A kid from a shrinking city in North Louisiana went and put himself in the toughest receiver room in American high school football. He won back-to-back Florida State championships there on a program that was in the middle of winning 3 in a row. And here's the part that almost nobody stops to think about. On a roster that stacked, even the future NFL receiver does not get the ball handed to him. As a senior, Camden Brown caught fewer than 30 passes. Fewer than 30 for around 500 yards, while the Raiders went and won yet another state title. This one is Class 7A. They beat Tampa Bay Tech 42-14 in that championship game, and Camden Brown caught a 21-yard touchdown in that. Fewer than 30 catches, that is the entire body of work he had to sell to college football, and college football responded exactly how you would expect. Now, if you've never followed recruiting, here's how it works. Companies grade every high school prospect in the country on a scale of 2 to 5 stars. The 5 stars are the household names, the kids you see signing on television in December, the ones every program in America build a plan around. In the industry's combined rankings, Camden Brown was a 3-star, which means he was good enough that real schools called and not good enough that anybody was saving a spot for him. He came out as the 86th best wide receiver in his class, the 615th best player in the country overall, and top 90 in the state of Florida. So he wasn't a bust, but he wasn't a star either. He was just a guy. But the offers, they were real though. Pittsburgh came calling, and so did Florida State, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Arizona. He committed to Pittsburgh in June, the summer before his senior year, and then as the season went on and the better offers kept arriving, he backed off it. He thanked the 2 Pitt coaches who had recruited him, talked it over with his family, and opened up the whole thing back up. He had signed with Auburn in the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, which is the richest and most watched and most brutal league in college football. And for about one season, it looked like the plan was working. As a true freshman in 2022, he played in all 12 games, and he even started in one. 9 catches, 123 yards, and the first touchdown of his college career, an 18-yard catch. And it came against LSU. Think about that for a second. A kid from Monroe, Louisiana, catching his first college touchdown against LSU. If you were writing this story in that moment, you would have said it was starting perfectly. But here's what was happening around him. Auburn was falling apart. On October 31st, 2022, in the middle of Camden Brown's freshman season, Auburn fired head coach Brian Harsin. Running backs coach Cadillac Williams was handed the team for the final 4 games. The Tigers finished 5-7. Then Auburn went out and hired Hugh Freeze, who arrived with his own staff, his own offense, and his own ideas about who could play. New head coach, new receivers coach, new recruits showing up with the new coach's stamp on them. And Camden Brown, a 3-star holdover from a staff that just got fired, landed in the worst possible spot in college football. He was somebody else's guy. So look at what actually happened over the next 2 years. His sophomore season, 2023, he caught 10 passes for 105 yards. He didn't score once. His junior season, 2024, it got worse instead of better. 7 catches, 61 yards, 1 touchdown, an entire year of his life. And by then, his whole locker room had been restocked. Keandre Lambert-Smith transferred in from Penn State. Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons showed up as freshmen. All 3 of them finished ahead of him. Which brings us to the thing this whole story turns on, the depth chart. Every position on a football team has one, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is the coach's ranked list of who's first, who's second, and who's fourth. Nobody votes on it, and nobody argues with it, and where your name sits on it is the difference between playing football and watching football. Camden Brown's name kept sitting in the wrong place. 3 full seasons at Auburn, 37 games, 6 starts, 26 catches, 289 yards. 289 yards in 3 years in the SEC. And there was no season-ending injury here. That is what makes this story different from most of the ones we tell. There's no cart, no surgery, no torn ligament, no 10 to 12-month timelines. It was just a young man in a stadium that holds 88,000 people in the best league in the sport standing on the sideline in his helmet watching other people play the game he moved 1,000 miles from home to play. It's a quieter kind of losing, and in some ways it's even harder because there's nothing to point at, nothing to rehab, no one to blame, just a list that never moved. On December 3rd, 2024, Camden Brown entered the transfer portal. If you have heard that phrase and never known exactly what it meant, it is simpler than it sounds. It is an official list a player puts his name on to tell every other school in the country that he is available. And I want you to understand how little anybody cared that his name went on it. He put out the standard statement thanking Auburn for the chance to live out his dreams, saying he had made friendships that would last a lifetime. He was the 7th Auburn player to enter the portal that offseason. He announced on the same day as a walk-on tight end and a walk-on punter. That is the volume level his exit happened at. Then he did the thing that in modern college football everybody reads as surrender. He left the SEC. And he did not go to another big money league. He went to the Sun Belt, to Georgia Southern in Statesboro, Georgia. Here's what that drop actually means because it is the whole point. The SEC is the top of the sport. You get packed stadiums, you get national television every Saturday, and you get a pipeline that runs straight to the NFL. The Sun Belt is several rungs down from that. Smaller schools, smaller budgets, and games that most of the country never even see. Going from one to the other is how college football quietly says, you didn't make it. To the outside world, that is where the story ends. Another highly recruited South Florida receiver who didn't pan out, dropping a level to play out his last year somewhere nobody was watching. But that is not why he picked it. He picked it because of how they came at him. Georgia Southern staff went after him hard and they never cooled off. As he put it, their energy never dropped after my first visit. He talked about offensive coordinator Ryan Applin, receivers coach BJ Johnson, and head coach Clay Helton like they were people he had known his whole life. With Alpin, BJ, and Helton, he said, it felt like we'd known each other for years. It was always comfortable. For the first time since high school, somebody actually wanted him. He was 21 years old with 289 career receiving yards to his name, walking into a Sun Belt program having never been the main guy. Then the 2025 season started, and the receiver who caught 26 passes in 3 years in the SEC did this. Camden Brown started every game for Georgia Southern. He caught 65 passes for 1,079 yards and 14 touchdowns. He became the first player in the history of Georgia Southern football to gain 1,000 receiving yards in a season. The 14 touchdown catches broke a school record that had stood since the year 2000, and going into bowl season, they were the most by any receiver in the entire country. And he didn't warm up slowly. He had 5 touchdowns in the first 4 games. 2 of them came against USC in a game Georgia Southern lost by 39 points, which tells you he was producing even while everything around him may have been falling apart. He went for 158 yards against Southern Miss. He went for 157 at Marshall. He put up 133 yards and 3 touchdowns in a single game against Coastal Carolina. 5 different games over 100 yards, 4 different games with multiple scores. And here's the one number that says everything about the 3 years that came before it. In 2025, Camden Brown by himself caught more touchdown passes than the entire Auburn roster he left behind, 14-11. The Sun Belt named him Newcomer of the Year and put him on the first team All-Conference, one of the 3 best receivers in the entire league. He got an invitation to Hula Bowl, an all-star game that NFL scouts fly in to watch. And the team that had scraped to 6-6 in the regular season went to Birmingham on December 29th and beat their rival Appalachian State 29-10 to win a bowl game. He also never stopped being the other thing he is. Camden Brown graduated with a degree in interdisciplinary studies, made the dean's list, and earned academic honors on top of the football. And when people asked what was actually fueling the best season of his life, he never once pointed at Auburn or at revenge or at proving some coach wrong. Asked how he keeps going when he's running on empty, he put it this way: I forget the tiredness and remember who I'm doing it for. So that is the resume that he carried into the 2026 NFL draft. He had gone into bowl season leading the country in touchdown catches. He had broken a record that stood since his school started playing football. He was one of the best receivers in his league. He had just won a bowl game and he had his college degree. And in April of 2026, the draft came and went and nobody said his name. Not in the first round, not in the 7th round, not once, across 3 days and every single pick. The reasons were the boring kind. At his pro day in March, which is the workout where NFL scouts come to your campus to time you and measure you, Camden Brown was reported to have run the 40-yard dash in 4.61 seconds. For a wide receiver, that is slow. The ones who get drafted usually run in the 4.4s, and the average at the combine is right around 4.5. On a spreadsheet, 4.61 does not look like a professional receiver. And his big season was exactly 1 season long in the Sun Belt at 21 years old, after 3 years of nothing in the SEC. So teams looked at all of it together and decided he had only looked that good because of who he was playing against. There's a version of this where that is simply the end. Most receivers who don't get drafted never play a single professional down. Instead, he signed with the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent, which means this: once the draft is over, teams are free to sign anybody who went unpicked. No guaranteed money, no promised spot, just an invitation camp and a locker room until somebody takes that back. He was one of only 2 undrafted rookie receivers Dallas even bothered bringing to training camp. And look at the room he walked into. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Kevontae Turpin, Ryan Flournoy. 3 Pro Bowlers, meaning 3 All-Stars, and another guy already established ahead of him before he ever pulled a helmet on. He was once again the least important receiver in the building. Not that Dallas made him feel this way, but he's a new guy. But something happened in camp, and the interesting part is that it wasn't really about catching the ball. Head coach Brian Schottenheimer kept getting asked about him, and he kept answering with the unglamorous stuff. Schottenheimer put it like this: "What I love about him is he does the little things too. You watch him on special teams and one-on-one drills and things like that. He realizes that's how you make this football team. That stuff matters." And on the thing that actually decides whether a rookie survives, the coach's read was even simpler. The game is not too big for him. The quarterbacks figured it out before the public did, though. Sam Howell said he's been having a really good camp. "I love throwing to him. Joe loves throwing to him." And then on what actually happens when the ball goes his way, he gets open. "When I throw it to him, he catches it." And then he added that he works so hard. The sky is the limit for that kid. Tight end Michael Trigg said watching him in practice did something for the whole group. "When I've seen him make plays in practice, it turns me up. He's a great player." But there was one thing Camden Brown could not have in Dallas. Number 4, the number he had worn for his little sister since the year she passed. The number he said he wanted on his jersey forever because it stood for something bigger than him. In Dallas, number 4 belongs to Dak Prescott. And so Camden Brown now wears number 6, but he has still kept that pennant. Then came Saturday, August 15th, 2026 in Seattle, the first professional football game of his life, 5 years and 2 days after August 13th, 2021. He would tell reporters afterward that the week leading up to it had been one of the hardest weeks of the year for his whole family. "This past week was kind of a little rough for me," he said, because August 13th, 2021 was when she passed away. Dallas Cowboys threw at him 3 times that night, and he caught all 3 for 62 yards. The first touchdown was a 39-yard throw from Sam Howell with a defender wrapped all over him, and he came down with it anyways. The second one was a fade to the back left corner of the end zone from Joe Milton, 2 yards out with the cornerback draped on him, the kind of throw where the receiver just has to go up over the defender and take it. Camden Brown left his feet, reached up, and caught it with one hand. Dallas won 17-7, and suddenly the whole country wanted to know who number 6 was. Joe Milton, who threw the second one, just kind of shook his head about it afterwards. "It was great, man, just to see a rookie come in, undrafted, and to make a catch like that." But when they put a microphone in front of Camden Brown, he didn't want to talk about the catches. He wanted to talk about the picture and the chain around his neck. He said, "My little sister right here, she's proven everybody wrong, so that's just who I am." He is telling you exactly where all of this comes from. She inspired him, and more than that, she taught him how because he watched her do it first. People said she wouldn't make it past 3. She spent the rest of her life proving them wrong. Recruiting gave him 3 stars, Auburn gave him a bench, and the NFL gave him nothing at all. She proved everybody wrong first. He's just doing what his little sister taught him to do. And then he set the line that this whole story has been walking towards. "I feel like she lived through me today. She's smiling at me right now. None of this is finished, and it would be a lie to pretend that it is." Camden Brown is still an undrafted rookie wearing number 6. 90 players report to a training camp, and 53 make the team. He is still fighting for one of those spots and still running down on kick coverage, still behind a room full of established guys. And he doesn't sound bitter about April even a little bit. To him, going undrafted was just one more chance to prove people wrong, which is the exact thing his little sister spent her whole life doing. So they asked him what happens now when the ball goes up in the air and there's a defender right there on him. His answer was 9 words. "When the ball's in the air, it's mine." Camden Brown, number 6, a Dallas Cowboy. And let's not forget Kaden, because if it wasn't for her, he might have not had the strength to get through the trials and tribulations that he's had to go through. Thank you, Kaden. If you liked this video, be sure to check this one out. And with that, I'm out. Peace.